Avodah Zarah Daf Beis. We have a machlekes between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva, which we referred to earlier as well. Rabbi Yishmael is of the opinion that when it comes to the Avodah Zarah of a goy, it doesn't become an Avodah Zarah that it becomes prohibited unless the goy actually worshipped it. When it comes to a yid, as soon as the yid built himself the Avodah Zarah, it's forbidden. And Rabbi Akiva holds the converse. He says that it's not considered Avodah Zarah by Yid until he worships it. We actually had a Rashi a while ago. The reason is that we hope that Yid will do tshuva and he won't go proceed with Avodah Zarah. But by a goy, says Akiva, it happens straight away. So we brought the brayso yesterday. Rabbi Shmuel brings the pasuk that he learns out that it says only when you completed it. Only then is it Avodah Zarah. He said it's talking about kelim, things which are there to serve the Avodah Zarah, like a base for the Avodah Zarah, kelim and all that. And because it says Asher Avodu, it's only when they actually worshipped it. Now, where did you leave off in the Gemara? Or should we start from Amar on the bottom of the page, in Alvin base? We start analyzing Rabbi Shmuel. Maybe start with Mark. That's the beginning of the subject. 2 lines at the bottom of the page.
Yeah. We got about 2 or 3 lines at the top. So start from there.
That's right, smack in the middle. Okay. So Nun Alvin Bay is the very bottom of the page. Amar. Let's now analyze what Rabbi Shmuel said. That passage which says he should destroy all the sites that Asher Avdu Shama Goyim, but the Goyim worshipped, and that's where Rabbi Shmuel learns out. It's only when they worshipped it, it became Avodah Zarah. And he says it's talking about the kelim, the kelim, the vessels that you use for Avodah Zarah, to support Avodah Zarah. So the first obvious question is, the pasuk clearly says, Mekaymes ksiv. It says in the pasuk, destroy the sites. And you're telling me it's talking about kelim that are there to support Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, so Rabbi Shmuel explains, or the Gemara explains, it can't be talking about the sites, because we learned already before, that the mountains themselves don't become usher, either because they're mechuber, because they're attached, or because there's no human intervention. Because we learn from a pasuk, Elahayim alaharim, that you should destroy the gods that are above the mountains, and not the mountains themselves. V'lo yaharim Elahayim. So therefore, what else can the pasuk be talking about? Is to know inyan lekelim. It must be talking about the kelim itself that you use to support the avodah zarah. Mekan omer, we learn out that avodas kachavim shel oived kachavim ein asura, that the avodah zarah from a guy is not forbidden ela ad sheta'aved, until they actually worship it. But Shal Yisrael, if it's a Jew's avodah zarah, miyad, straight away. So now the Gemara is going to analyze exactly what he said. Says the Gemara, but you said a minute ago that we're talking about kelim, and you're saying that kelim, okay, we know from the pasuk that kelim you don't is not really considered avodah zarah until you worship it. What does that have to do with avodah zarah itself? You want to say that even avodah zarah itself, the idol itself, if the goy sculpts an idol, it's not avodah zarah until he actually worships. How do you know? On Makro, it says in pasuk Asher Atem. It says in pasuk Asher Atem Yoshim Oisam. You will. This is the land. He said, destroy the places that you go and worship. And the pasuk then says, this is the land that you will inherit. And then it says the gods on their mountains and so on. It says Asher Atem Yoshim Oisam. You yashing them es Elohim, their idols. So we're comparing Makish Elohim lekelim. We're comparing Elohim, which is idols, to, we said Mekaymus means kelim. We're comparing the two. Mat kelim. And what are we comparing? This is how we learn out. Just like kelim, achi yavdu, it's not avodah zarah until you actually worship it. So too, Elohim nami achi yavdu, it's not avodah zarah until you actually worship it. Says the Gemara, but Rabbi Akiva, who says that's not correct. Rabbi Akiva agrees when it comes to kelim, it's not avodah zarah until they worship it. But when it comes to the actual idol itself, Rabbi Akiva says by a goy, it's immediately avodah zarah. What does he do with this a pasuk here? But it says Elohim, Oisam and Esalehem. But does he make that equation as well? So the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva the lemakish. You know why he doesn't equate the two? Amalek will tell you es hifsiki inyan. Oisam is referring to the kalim, like the base and all that. That you have to wait until they worship it. Then it says es, which is a break, and then elehem, which has different rules. The rules by the idol itself is it becomes by a goy, it's immediately an idol. As soon as they prepare it, it's an idol. So, so Rabbi Shmuel, okay, Ashkan, all we know from there is Avodas Kachavim, Shal Oile Kachavim, the Ein Asura Chetavim. We learned out that a goy's Avodah Zarah is not Avodah Zarah until you actually worship it. But the Yisrael Asura Miyad Minolid. But the second part that he said, when it comes to Avodah Zarah that belongs to a Jew, it's not Avodah Zarah until he actually worships it. It's immediate. How does he know that? So the first thing Mara attempts to say, Svaru, it's logical. A goy is only when he worships. The Yisrael, asur miyah. By a Jew, it's much stricter, because a goy's avodah zarah, for example, you can cancel. A goy can cancel it. A Jew's avodah zarah can never be canceled. So we see that a Yid's avodah zarah is much stricter. So too, it becomes avodah zarah straight away. So how do you know? Maybe Ema the Yisrael klalo klaloi. Maybe learn, okay, Yid's Avodah Zarah is different than a Goy, so maybe a Goy Avodah Zarah is when you worship it, but a Yid's Avodah Zarah never becomes awesome. And possibly the reason is because a Yid, his whole heart is not into it, because he still believes in Hashem as well. So therefore, maybe the Avodah Zarah is not really an Avodah Zarah, maybe. So he counters that by saying impossible. Hashtag geniza boy, a Jew's avodah zarah cannot even be cancelled. You have to get rid of it. It's limiting and tell me it's not also and a goy is also doesn't make sense. Tell him, okay, but who told you that the laws of a yid are any different than the laws of a goy? Maybe if a goy's avodah zarah is not avodah zarah till you worship it, maybe he the same thing. They make it say it should be like a goy. On Makro, we have another pasuk where it says when Moshe Rabbeinu reprimands the Yidden for what they did with the egel, he uses this. This is what he says: that sin that you made the egel. He doesn't say that you worship the egel. He says you made it. So that itself is already avodah zarah. So that's how we know by Yid. As soon as you make it, you fashion it out, you're already considered you're already avodah zarah. Mishas hasiyah, come le bechet. The moment that you made it, it's already a sin. Says the Gemara, 1 second. There's two parts here. One is, when are you considered an oived avodah zarah? And one is the avodah zarah itself. For example, the mountain is not avodah zarah, and yet if you worship the mountain, you're considered an idol worshiper. In fact, there's a machlekes Rabbeinu Tam and others whether really the mountain is avodah zarah, except that it's not osir, or the mountain is not avodah zarah at all, like Rashi says. It's not avodah zarah yet, but if you worship it, you are oved avodah zarah. Says the Gemara, why can't you say the same thing by the egel? As soon as they made it, they were as soon as they made it oved avodah zarah, but it does not become usher until they worship it. They did a sin by making the egel. They sinned. Maybe an avera, but the iser to say that the object itself becomes usher, maybe that doesn't happen until you worship it, just like by a goy. How know Yid is any different? Says the Gemara on Makro, because it says in pasuk, order ish asher yasa pesel. Cursed should be the person asher yasa pesel that creates an idol. Umasechem mishas asiyah come lebara. The moment Hashiyasa, when they made it, they already get cursed. So the same problem. Gavrabar, the person will get cursed, but who says that the item itself became a vajara? Yitzur mitzvah. Says the Gemara, no, because in that very passage where it says they get cursed, it says Toyavas Hashem. That this is an abomination, and therefore because it says it's an abomination, so it shows that the item itself is repugnant. The item itself becomes asa. Says the Gemara, no, Rabbi Kiva, that's a good point. How can Rabbi Kiva say by Yid it does not become asa straight away, only when he worships it? What did he do with Avos Hashem? So the Gemara, Rabbi Kiva, he says, Davar hamevi l'tedeva. This idol eventually will bring you to behave in an abominable way. But excuse me, but it's not avodah zarah till you actually worship it. So he went further. Okay, so now Rabbi Akiva, how can Rabbi Akiva hold a goy? It's immediate as soon as he makes it. It says it clearly in pasuk. It says Psile Elehayim, that their god images is tisra, you should burn in the fire. which means Misha Paslu, the word psal is to fashion, to carve out. And Misha Paslu Nasa Elaka. As soon as they carved out the Avodah Zarah, it's already an Avodah Zarah. No, clear that by a guy, as soon as they made it, it's an Avodah Zarah. Hakam Bishmol says only after they worship it. We need for the Kintan of Yosef. For what Rabbi Yosef taught us. How do you know that a guy can actually cancel? Not build behind, or they can cancel the idol. Shenemar, it says it says that it says that the Avodah Zarah, they should go ahead and they should burn it in the fire. That means as long as they are Avodah Zarah, you have to burn them. But the moment you don't treat them anymore like an Avodah Zarah, you can cancel them. So he uses that pasuk to teach you that a guy can cancel. Nothing to do with when it becomes an Avodah Zarah. Nu v'idach, how does a keep know that a guy can cancel? We need this pasuk for that. He said, no, nafka mit Shmuel, Shmuel Rami. Shmuel asks a question that two psukim or two parts of a pasuk that seem to contradict each other. It says in the pasuk, says in the pasuk that you should burn in the fire. In the very same pasuk that we just mentioned, psule, it says that loisachmei kesef v'zovel, and don't desire the silver and gold on them. And then the pasuk says, and you should take and take it because it'll be a stumbling block. But he reads it as if aleim kama, don't desire it, and then a new part of the sentence, v'lakachta, but do take it. How can that be? You just said that you shouldn't desire it, and you say you can take it. Okay, so how do you reconcile this pasuk? Is postly lelahai if they carved it out in order to be a god, leisachmet, don't want it. You shouldn't desire it. But postly melahai, if they cancel it from being a god, then v'lakachta, you can keep it because a goy can cancel it. Okay, so the Gemara Akiva, Ashkan Avechavim, okay, we know that a guy straight away. How does he know by Yid? You're not over until you actually worship it. It says in Pasuk, there's some basasa, and the Pasuk says, what should you do in the curse of the person who made Avodah Zarah? And with some basasa, you should. We'll see later. It means maybe you should hide it. You should get rid of it. But Rabbi Kiva says there's some basasa, and he used the Avodah Zarah in a discreet way. What does that mean? Ad sheyasel advarim shebasesa. One thing for sure is even for Yid is going to be over Avodah Zarah back then. They would do it discreetly because if there were witnesses who caught him, they would get killed by the bezdin. So the some basasa is part of what they did with Avodah Zarah, and they used it. So we see clearly from here by Yid it's not Avodah Zarah until he uses it. So Rabbi Shmuel, what does he do with that pasuk? Ahui boy leader for Rabbi Yitzchak. By a guy you can cancel it. Haino by Yid you have to hide it. Big machlek is a shaynim when it says here geniza doesn't mean literally. Because we'll see later the stones of the mizbeach they actually had to hide it somewhere. The same thing we have to be buried. Is that what it means? Or does it mean that geniza means that you get rid of it? It's just a borrowed term. It means you can pulverize it and toss it in the air. Like we had the machlekes, or you have to throw in Yamamelech or something like that. But anyway, we're using this pasuk. Now, if there's some basasa, you should put it away in a hidden place. So that's what Rabbi Shmuel used it for. So the Gemara says, the idach, where's the Bekiva learn that from? Nafkala, he learned that from Rabbi Chizah. Omerab, Rabbi Chizah, Omerab, Benayim, Rabbi Chom, Yisrael, Shetun, Giza, Haino, Rabbi Zorah, Yid, needs Giza, Shnem, it says the following, it says the pasuk, Sita lecho asherah, you should not plant this asherah tree. Call eight, any tree. Eitzel mizbech, next to the mizbech of Hashem. What does that have to do with the mizbech? Is ma mizbeach, just like the mizbeach, ton geniza, just like the mizbeach needs to be needs geniza if it was you can't use it anymore. Is because you don't have any benefit from it, so you have to store it away. So too, same thing by Asheda. Why is it told to put the Asheda and Mizbeach together? To tell you this Mizbeach, you don't have any benefit from it, you have to store it away and hide it. Same thing with an Asheda tree. Nu v'idach, Rabbi Yishmael, how does he know? What does he do with that pasuk? He has another pasuk to teach you this din about Geniza. So what does he do with the Samba Sasa? What does he do with this pasuk from Leisita L'cha Sheda Eitzim L'Zbeach Hashem? He needs it in Shlakish. The Amar Shlakish says, "Kol Maimed Dayan She'ena Hagen anyone who sets up a dayan, and eitz generally is it's not, sometimes we say other eitz or sada, it applies to everybody, but eitz also is a tree that we say is like a leader. We have by Iyuv, we said of this eitz referring to a leader, by the Meraglim. Anyone who sets up a dayan, who appoints a dayan who's definitely not suitable, is keilu noiteya asheni. You're planting a tree, but a terrible tree. Be Yisrael amongst the Yidden. Remember it says shaytim v'shaytim chavoshrecha, place judges, and then the next part says don't plant this tree. And Rav Ashi goes a step further. Why does the pasuk then mention mizbeach? Mizbeach it's even worse if there were other dayanim around who were actually suitable. And the dayanim, rabbonim are compared to mizbeach. Just like a mizbeach atones for his mechaper for avedas, so to dayanim and rabbonim also help mechaper people from their avedas. So if you were qualified people and you appoint someone who's not qualified, it's even worse. It's as if you planted a tree right there next to the mizbeach. Amar Abashi. Not Eitzel Beach, right next to the Beach. Remember, it says Eitzel Mizbeach. It says in the pasuk right there, you should not plant a tree next to the Beach. Now we have a series of questions. So Rabbanun asked the question: what happens if Ritach Keli La'avodas Kachavim? What happens if you have a vessel that is punctured, so it's no longer a vessel, and it was originally Avodah Zarah and it was punctured, whatever it is, but now you bang it out with a hammer, so you thin out the metal, and now the metal completely covered over that hole. So you repaired it. And the question is, Ritach Keli le'avodas kachavim, and when you did that, you had in mind it should be done for Avodah Zarah. Mao, is it Avodah Zarah or not? Avodas kachavim. What's the question? According to who are you asking this question? Remember, according to Bishmal, it's not Avodah Zarah by a goy until they worship it. According to Rabbi Akiva, the moment you completed Avodah Zarah, it's already Avodah Zarah, even before worshiping. So who you're asking this question for, about, or to who? Well, Bein Rabbi Shmuel, Bein Rabbi Akiva, Mishamshe Avodah kachavim. Remember, we said before, Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva only argue regarding the idol itself. But if it's a base for an idol or something that's there to assist the idol, it's called Misham Avodah Zarah. Everyone agrees it's not an idol until you worship it. Well, you're talking about a keli. The keli itself is not an idol. The keli is there to support the idol. So of course, it's not Avodah Zarah until you worship it. So what's the question? Misham Avodah Zarah ain't asurin achiyavda. Everyone agrees it's not until you worship it. Talking about a yid. And we want to know the status of. We know that by yid, as we'll see, it might be stricter than a goy. What about when it comes to the kalim of the yid? So the question is again, I'll leave it out. Who are you asking the question by a yid? Who says that by yid, even the Avodah Zarah itself is not Avodah Zarah until you worship it. The Avodah Zarah itself, which obviously is far more stricter than the Kalim, is not Avodah Zarah until you worship it. So you ask me about the Kalim, of course it's the same thing, until you worship it. Rabbi Shmuel said by a Yid, as soon as he builds Avodah Zarah, it's already Avodah Zarah. What about the Kalim? Do we compare the Kalim of a Yid to the Avodah Zarah of a Yid? Or do we compare the Kalim of a Yid to the Kalim of a Goy? And therefore it's not Avodah Zarah until you actually worship it. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel, the Omer, he says, Asura miyad, by Yid it's also straight away. So what's the din? Mishamshim and Mishamshim Gamarina, do we say, look, Kalim have to be similar to Kalim. The only other place where we have a din of Kalim is by a Goy. So just like by a Goy, it's not forbidden until they worship it. Same thing by Yid. He's Asura, it should be until you worship it. Or we say the Yid, all the dinim of the Yid you learn from each other. Is mahi asur miyad. Avodah Zarah itself is forbidden straight away. So af misham shel asur miyad. So too should this keli be asur only straight away. Says the Gemara, one thing I don't understand. If we're talking about, Gemara is going to ask a very simple question. If we're talking about you made a keli for Avodah Zarah, why talk about such a unique case such a rare case. You had a keli with a puncture, and you flatten the metal out, and you want to know when does it become Avodah Zarah. Talk about any keli. A general question: a keli of a yid, when does it become Avodah Zarah? When he worships it, or as soon as he makes it thinking about Avodah Zarah? So we're asked, my area, the kaboyle rita keli. Why are you asking a question to your rare case? Tiboyle, ask us if you made a keli. When does it become Avodah Zarah by Yid? Straight away or when you worship it? So the Gemara therefore changes around. And the Gemara says, nah, the question was a totally different question. And the question is regarding Tumah. We have a general rule that if something is Tameh, and then you break it, let's say a keli, and suddenly it has a hole, and it cannot even fit a pomegranate. As we're looking more Shabbos there, it cannot even fit a pomegranate. It's no longer a keli; it's useless. So therefore, if it's no longer a keli, it loses its status of being a keli, it loses its tumah. What happens if you repair it? You repair the keli now. Does it regain its old tumah or not? So this concept of regaining the old tumah is midrabanan, but does it regain it or not? And in other words, it has to go to the mikveh again because it was tameh before, and you have to put it in the mikveh to clean it out or not. And the reason why that you might have to is if you tovel a keli that is tummy and you tovel it, you have to wait until dark before you can actually use the keli. Tefillah alone is not enough for tumah until it's dark. And now, if we tell you that you fix up the keli, it's all right straight away. It's a brand new keli. We are worried that people will see the keli this morning was tameh, and now they see you walking around with it and using it. They think, oh, well, you went to the mikveh, or the same thing, that you can use it straight away. So therefore, we said that, you know what, it retains the old tumah. You have to go through the ritual of mikveh, and then you'll treat the, you follow the laws accordingly, which means you have to wait till dark. So it's only midrabanan. So the question is here, his whole question is based on the question of whether the old tumah comes back or not. Now we learned that there's different kinds of kalim, but a clay matches, when it comes to this wooden kalim, there's metal kalim, there's earthen kalim, different laws. When it comes to a clay, most kalim have to be concave. You have to be able to store things inside it in order to be a keli. Had it been flat, it's not considered a keli. But when it comes to metal, even if it's flat, like a tray, it's still considered a keli. You can still use it. So kli matches, pshutein, umikablein, regardless whether it's flat or whether it's a proper keli. Tamein, it's tummy. But then what happened was nishtabru. But once it broke, is taru. That's it. It's no longer a keli. It's taru. Chazava awesome keli. Then you went ahead and you fixed it up. You made it a keli again. Yachzru l'tumah yishana. The din is it goes back to the old tumah. And our question is, this is our question. Kihadra tumah. Maybe when do we say the old tumah comes back? If the original tumah is mahatayra. Hani mili the tumah deraisa. If the originally tumah was deraisa, the Torah, so we're strict, and then it got punctured or something, and the keli has a hole, massive hole, no longer a keli, and then you fixed it up. We'll say, you know what? With the rabbanon, we are going to treat it as if it's still tameh, because the original tumah was from the Torah. Aval tumah de rabbanon, but a tumah which is only the rabbanon. Now remember, when it comes to avodah zarah, you don't have any benefit from it. Nowhere does a Torah say that avodah zarah becomes tameh. Avodah Zarah becoming tameh is only midrabanan. So maybe by tumah of Avodah Zarah, we're not going to be strict. Or makes no difference. Rabbanan, the Raisa, every keli that you was tameh and then you fixed it up, it becomes tameh again. Says the Gemara, so why talk about Avodah Zarah? The tiboy leishar tumah is the Rabbanan. Talk about any tumah Rabbanan. Why are you specifically talking about Avodah Zarah? Says the Gemara, you're right. But it's a double question here. The question is one question born out of another question. First of all, I have a general question. Tumah de Rabbanan. If the original tumah is only Rabbanan, does it come back or does it come back? That's question number one. And if you want to tell me it doesn't come back, what about tumah avodah zarah, which is much stricter, even though it's Rabbanan, but it's avodah zarah. Maybe because of the fact that it's a tumah, that's avodah zarah, maybe we will treat it as if it's a tumah from the Torah, we should be strict, and the old tumah comes back. Or not. Teku. Remains a question. Rabbi Yochanan asked Rabbi Yanai a question. Takrevis avodas gechav. We learned before an interesting halacha that if you brought up a sacrifice to Avodah Zarah, that sacrifice is stricter than Avodah Zarah itself. A goy can cancel the Avodah Zarah itself, but the according to say that the sacrifice cannot be canceled. And the reason is we learn that from Pasuk by Yitzamdu Balpar, they cleave to the Balpar, and they said like they ate from Zivche Mesim. So we compare it to just like a mace, just like a mace. Nothing you can do to undo it. So too is something that you brought up to the Balpar, something you will makriv, you brought an offering to a Avodah Zarah. There's nothing you can do to cancel it or to remove that tumah. So the Gemara says over here. So takrevis avodas kachavim shal oichlin. You brought takrev avodah zarah from food. According to some Rishonim, we're dafka talking about food because food has another problem that not only is it takrevis that you cannot cancel, it's also food. Is that you can't take it to a mikveh. Had it been a metal thing that you're being makriv to avodah zarah or a stick, whatever it is, maybe you could because you can go to mikveh and cleanse it. It might be a lot easier. The question we're about to learn. And others learn it makes no difference. Any takrevis. Bottom line is mal. The question is mi mahanula bitul letarina betuma eloi. Bittul maybe doesn't help to remove the avodah zarah, remove the issa, but maybe it does remove the tumah. V'tiboyle kalim. So why are you asking about food? Ask generally about kalim. So he says the following: kalim like a boyle. No, why are you talking about only what do you call it? Thing that you bring up a takrevis to avodah zarah? Talk about this thing that support avodah zarah. Same question. If you cancel it, does it cancel the tumah as well or not? So the Gemara, kalim like a boile. I have no problem with kalim. Kiva on the east l'tar mikveh, like because the fact is, if a keli is tummy, you put it in the mikveh. And over here by avodah zarah, what's the cleansing process by avodah zarah? Canceling it, right? Kalim, which is not an offering to avodah zarah, kalim, which is supporting avodah zarah, you can just cancel. A goy can cancel it. So therefore, since the Issa disappears, the Tumah disappears as well. That's not a question. Even this Tumah nami bottle. So the Tumah goes with it. It dissipates. My question is oichlin. My question is food that is no remedy of going to the mikveh, as Rashi holds and some Rishonim, and we're only talking about food. But also more than that is you can't cancel it. You can't cancel it. About food. So the Gemara, what about the tiboila avodas kachavim gufa? What about avodah chavim made out of food? Why are you talking about you made the offering of food? What about the avodah zarah itself as food? You bow down to a piece of bread. Remember, we learned before that they used to bow down to anything. Maybe why? If you're talking about food, fine. Food cannot go into the mikveh, but talk about food that it's an avodah zarah itself. Why talk about only limited only to a case where it became an offering? So the Gemara says no. If we're talking about avodah zarah, it wouldn't bother me. You know why? Even the Yisuri Bata, you can cancel Avodah Zarah. And if the Issa disappears, so too does the Tumah. My question is, my question is, Dafka, an offering of food to Avodah Zarah. Do we say, even the Yisuri bottle, you cannot, a goy cannot cancel the takrevis of Avodah Zarah? We learn that from Zivche Mesim. Kidar Gidol, like Avida said before, is Tumah Nami the bottle, so maybe Tumah also cannot become bottle. Once the Isa doesn't disappear, neither is a tumah. Maybe you cannot take away the Isa of Avodah Zarah because that's from the Torah. But remember, the whole in of tumah is only the Rabbanon. Maybe you can remove the tumah from it. Tumah Rabbanon bottle. Teiku. Good question. We remain with no answer. Another question. Rabbi Yosi ben Shalom Rabbi Yosi ben Shalom asked Rabbi a question. Kalim sheshim shebehen beis chaynav. Beis Chaynav, I think we talked about it a little while ago. Beis Chaynav, it was what happened was that Shimon HaTzadik had two sons, and Shimi and Chaynav, and he decided that the Kohen Gadol should be Chaynav, his younger son. And you can imagine the older son was very upset, but Chaynav, you know what, declined out of respect for his older brother, whatever it is, he declined. So he gave it over to Shimi. But for whatever reason, he changed his mind. So he sent up this whole scheme to he set up his brother. his brother was not very aware of Faye with everything, all the going on of how a Kohen is supposed to behave. So it's a whole story there. How he got his brother to dress like a woman, to dress, wear some woman's clothes. He made this whole story, and the Chacham got very angry. I wanted to get rid of Shimi and kill him for desecrating the base of Mikdash. It turned out to be that was a Baba Maisa, and Choynev set him up. So they decided to kill Choynev. Choynev fled, and he went to Mitzrayim, and he built a base of Mikdash. And we'll have the big machlek is this base Hamikdash. What's the story with this base Hamikdash? Is this base Hamikdash actually actually nachas? Was this a base Hamikdash, a church, Avodah Zarah, or actually was not Avodah Zarah at all? He did it L'Shem Shemayim, and he did not have any Yidden, according to some Rishonim, he didn't have any Yidden bring kabbanis there. He had a mizbeach, but the mizbeach was for goyim to bring kabbanis, but because they participated in it, they were guilty. And the question is, the kelim, the din is the kohenim of that base of Mikdash had no right to work. If they came to Yisrael, they would not allow them to work in base of Mikdash because it's a chil Hashem. What you did over there, it's pasnish for you to work in the base of Mikdash. What about the vessels that was used in Beis Choynev? If you learned that it was not Avodah Zarah, can you use those vessels in the Beis Hamikdash? That's the Gemara's question. Says the Gemara, Kelim sheshimshu ben Rabbi Yishmael wants to know for Rebbe, the kelim that were used in Beis Choynev, ma which is Beis Hamikdash, can you use the Beis Hamikdash or not? The question is only a little bit Madama Beis Choynev la Beis Hamikdash. The question is only according to one that says that it was not a church. That Nan we learned Koyanim. Koyanim sheshimshu bebeis Choynev lo yishamshu b'mikdash laim. That's for certain. The Koyanim who served in Beis Choynev have no right to serve in the Beis Hamikdash. Right? The ein tzarich leimer ledavar achad. Surely, if they work for a church, they cannot work in the Beis Hamikdash. Our question is, maybe Koyanim we penalize. Like it's only a penalty to Rabbanan. Maybe Koyanim will penalize because they had a choice. Who asked them to work in Beis Choynev? But the kelim that served in the Beis Choynev had no choice. So do we put an impost? Do we put a knas on those kelim as well, or not? So that was his question. Koinin, because he's the bottom, maybe they knew they had choices. Our kelim had no choice. Maybe it's permitted to be used. Or it doesn't make a difference. The fact that it was used there renders it possible, disqualified to use another Beis Hamikdash. On Malay, so Rebbe said to him, Asurim heim. You cannot use it in the other Beis Hamikdash. How do I know that? Mikra haya b'yadeinu. Rebbe said, I remember a pasuk, v'shachnu, but I forgot. It slipped my mind. I don't remember the basis for it, but you cannot use the kelim. Says Gemara Eisra, I have a question. So now Rabbi Yossi is asking a question. Rabbi Yossi is going to Rebbe. It says, Kol hakelim asher niach hamelech ochas. Achaz was Chizkiah's father, and he was a Russian, and he brought all of these Avodah Zarahs in the base of Mikdash. It says over there, all the kelim, Asher Niach HaMelech, that the king, that Achaz, brought into Malchus B'Mali when he was terrible. So what we did after he died, Heichanu v'Higdashnu. We prepared them and we sanctified them. What do you mean prepared them and sanctified them? It sounds like they used the kelim again. My love, Heichanu da'at we put them in the mikveh, because they were tamei, and then higdashnu dakdashin, and we used them again. We put some oil on it, we anointed it, and we used them again. So what does he clear from here? That we don't penalize the kelim we use mamish for Avodah Zarah. We don't penalize the kelim because they had no choice in the matter. So therefore that result. So therefore you could have used the kelim of Beis Choynev into the Beis Hamikdash. Amalei Rebbe said to him, and this is actually a little bit difficult Gemara to understand the following Gemara. Okay. So Rebbe said to him, Baruch Atol Shamayim, thank God that you should be blessed. Shechazarti li avidasi. You just remind me the pasuk. So Rebbe is now going to use the very same pasuk Rabbi Yossi mentioned, but to learn exactly the opposite in the pasuk. Exactly the opposite. And therefore he says, from this pasuk, I am going to learn that you cannot use the kelim. Because how do I read the pasuk? Heichanu means shegonzu. We prepared it to put away, to set away. The dashnu, shigdashnu achedim tachteh. And we got other substitutes. Now this Gemara is very difficult because you look at the pasuk, it doesn't really sound like what Rebbe is interpreting. It sounds more like Rabbi Yossi interpreting. How can Rebbe decide with such confidence that this is the pshat in the pasuk, and therefore I know the halachas, you can't use it, and you're wrong? Where does he see it? Anyway. it's a problem. The Bach over here sort of tries to make some kind of explanation, but it's difficult to understand. Says the Gemara, Lema misayele. Let's bring a proof to Rebbe that you cannot use it. It says there that Mizrachit Tzefoni, there were different chambers around the base of English. So on the northeastern corner, so that's on the right side of the base of English, is Gonzu Beis Chashmonoi is Avne HaMizbech. What did they do with the stones of the Mizbech? Sheshoktu Anshe Yavon. That the people of Yavon, went ahead and ruined it, and so on. So what did they do with those stones? We'll soon see why they couldn't just pick them up. What did they do with those stones? What they did was they took the stones that was raised in the Mizbech and they somehow or another made it sheker. They used it for Avodah Zarah. Okay, so they used Avodah Zarah, and what did they do with the stones? They went ahead and they hid them. So therefore, what does he mean clearly? They didn't fix them up and use them again. So we see that once it was used no good in the Beis Hamikdash, we don't want to use it again, even though there's remedies. It's not wrong. Papa said, "Oh, that's very different." Hasam Krom, there was a clear pasuk where it says Ashkach v'dorish. Now, when the Goyim used it for Avodah Zarah, because the Mizbech was part of the Beis Hamikdash, because the Mizbech was part of the Beis Hamikdash, the Goyim couldn't really make it into Avodah Zarah. The Goyim couldn't make it into Avodah Zarah because what's we're talking about? That's Avodah Zarah. We're talking about the stones from Beis Chaynev that was not Avodah Zarah. The Goyim could not make it Avodah Zarah because there's a rule, and we'll learn about it in the next few days. A person cannot go ahead and turn someone else's animal into Avodah Zarah, or to turn someone else's item into Avodah Zarah. You can't do that. You can't go ahead and worship this guy's animal, and now he can't go to Beis Hamikdash because it's not yours. Ein adam oisa davar she'einu shaloi. So the Goyim couldn't ruin the Mizbech, but midrabanan it was defiled, and therefore we can't use it. And yet, so we see clearly from here that even though it was Rabban and everything else, they didn't want to use it. So the Papa says, no, there's different. They actually were able to make it into Avodah Zarah. How? Because Ashkach v'Dorish, they found the pasuk. The Ksiv, it says, Uvo b'pritzim. They came along, these terrible people. The Chalalua, they went ahead and they turned it into chulin. When they went ahead and they chiseled these stones and everything else, they turned them into chulin. And the moment that it's no longer holy, it's ownerless, and the moment it's ownerless, it became now the possession of the goy. And the moment it became the possession of the goy, they made it into real Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah, you can't use it again. How can you use Avodah Zarah again? Even an ordinary person can't use an Avodah Zarah. So surely the Beis Hamikdash can't use it. So there's no proof from here. Amri, they said, what should we do with these stones? Hey, Chinab, what should we do? Nit birinu, should we go ahead and break it and break the stones? So it's like mevatel the stones. Avonim shleimus amarachmona. The Torah says clearly that you need whole stones, and so therefore we can't just go ahead and break the stones. Can't do that. In other words, the question was, should we get a goy? Remember, Eid can't be mevatel. We'll see later. Eid cannot be mevatel avodah zarah of a goy. Surely not the Eids. So get a goy. We learned a while ago that you can force a goy even to mevatel someone else avodah zarah. Get a goy and come break the stones, and that's how you cancel avodah zarah. You can't. We need whole stones. Nina srinu. Let's go ahead and plane and use a plane or something to make it smooth. Like you can't put a metal on it. But now the question is, why litfilinu? Let him break it. Vilishkilinu lenafshayu. Okay, so you cannot use it for the Beis Hamikdash, but why don't we just say take it and use it? Okay, we cannot use it for Beis Hamikdash. You just said it's not whole. Anything else? Because a goy can mevatel with his other. So, but why hide it? Use it. Give it to people to use it. Me loy amar Abaisha. Did Abaisha say bikshu? They wanted lignos kol kesef v'zor ba'olam. When the Beis Hamikdash was plundered and pillaged, they took away all the gold and silver from the coffers, and they used it to produce money around the world and other things. So why don't you make a law that all the gold and silver in the world should be usher, because mixed into them is the gold of the Beis Hamikdash? Yep. So the Gemara says over here, why didn't we do that? Because maybe it's gold and silver that was stolen from Yerushalayim. But we ask, Yerushalayim, but the vast majority of the gold and silver is not from the Beis Hamikdash Yerushalayim. Why would you even contemplate to answer it? El Orabai, Bikshu Lignois, they wanted to go ahead and to hide dinner, those coins that are known as Hadriana from King Hadrian and from Turiana and from King, I guess, Turiana and Shifim of Tiva Shalishalayim, because those coins were used in Shalayim, and therefore they might have used what do you call it? Money from the base of Midrash. Ad shemotzul mikra min ha'Torah shu muter. They found a pasuk in the Torah that says that it's all right. What do you mean it's all right? Because a barba pritz v'chaluz no longer belongs to Hegdish, because the Peritzim, these Greeks, they came along and they, when they chose everything else, they made it. It's no longer Hegdish. V'chaluz turned it to Chulin, and therefore it belongs to the Goyim, and so on and so forth. So l'chayda, you can cancel it. So why didn't they just give it out to people? If you tell me they didn't want to use the base of Midrash because it was actually used for Avodah Zarah and everything else, so why then hide it? You cancel it, give it to people, just like the case of the gold and silver. They allowed everybody to use the gold and silver coins, even though there's some money of the base of Midrash mixed into it, some gold base Midrash, because it was canceled and the Goyim owned it and they canceled it. So the Gemara, the gold and silver was never used for the base of Midrash, so we let this be distributed. Everyone can have it. Over here, but over here, because it was actually the Mizbeach, it was used for the base of Midrash, we didn't think it was right to let people have, parts of these stones for their own use when it was already once upon a time it was used for the base of Midrash and the Mizbeach. It's wrong. An ordinary person should use it. Next Mishnah. This is what we just mentioned. A goy can mevatel avodah chum. A goy can cancel not only his own avodah zarah but even someone else's. But the Yid cannot be mevatel the avodah zarah of a goy, and he definitely cannot be mevatel avodah zarah of a Yid. Hamavatl avodah chavim mevatel mishamsheh. If you mevatel the principle avodah zarah, then all of the accessories automatically are no longer avodah zarah. But bitul mishamsheh, if you cancel the accessories, mishamshin mutarin v'yasur, then the accessories become mutar, but the idol still remains usher, because the idol is not secondary to the accessories; it's the other way around. Says the Gemara. Masne le Rebbe Rab Shimon. Rebbe was once teaching his son Rab Shimon, Rebbe's son. Oived kachavim mevatel avodas kachavim shaloi v'shechavera. He said the same thing. He says in Mishnah, a goy can cancel his own avodah zarah and the avodah zarah of a goy. Amalei, he said to his father, Rebbe. Interesting. Shlomo talks about why he called his father Rebbe rather than father. Rebbe. As a machlek is a poskim, if your father is your teacher, should you rather call him father or rather call him teacher? Some say you should call him teacher because the teacher is greater than the father, and others argue the other way around. If you look and remember the Mishnah at the end of the second paragraph in Elam Metzias, there it says that if your father is also your teacher, then his Aveda comes before your teacher. So a father or teacher is greater.
Wouldn't it be different? Mm-hmm. Would it be any different if you're in a share? There's 20 guys there, so out of covet you say Rebbe, you ask him, you don't say Abba?
Is it more covet to say Abba or Rebbe?
Well, I don't know. If he's your teacher, everyone else is calling him Rebbe, so you call him Rebbe also.
So it's true, but they all know. I don't know. It's a machlek in the Shulchan Aruch between the poskim in Shulchan Aruch itself, the Reish Beis, wherever it is, in Yerdea. What's the right thing to do? Okay, so Gemara says further, when you were younger, it's the way he talks to his father. When you were younger, you taught me this law, but you said it differently. You said then that a goy can even cancel the avodah zarah of a yid. So I'm going to ask the question. What do you mean? I'm going to ask the Yisrael mikam mevatle. How in the world can mevatel the avodah zarah of did I skip a line? The Yisrael become mevatel. How can you mevatel? How can anybody mevatel the avodah zarah of a yid? We learned before about v'som baseiseksiv. It says v'som basasar that you should hide it. The avodah zarah of a yid, you have no choice but to hide it. Says the Gemara. Omer Abhil b'rei Lavelas. Abhil said this on Ravalas. Lo nitzacha sheyesh lo ba shutvis b'shutvis. It's talking about over there. The goy is a partner with the yid. And the goy can cancel. Now we're going to have three different ways of understanding exactly what he's saying here. But if the goy has a partner for the yid in avodah zarah, the goy can cancel part of that avodah zarah. So the Gemara now wants to know. So when Rebbe was young, he said that, but when he's older, from now Mishnah here, he omits the part about the Yid. So the question is, B'yaldusa Microsoft or V'zikanusa Microsoft? What do you think when he's young? What do you think when he's old? B'yaldusa Sava, when he was young, he thought Yisrael. He thought like this: Yisrael, their partnership with a Yid and a Goy, then the Yid is sort of feels secondary or subordinate to the Goy, and he feels that he's worshiping the Goy's Avodah Zarah. That he's actually bowing down to the Goy's Avodah Zarah. So it's still really a Goy's Avodah Zarah, and therefore it can be cancelled. And since the Goy cancels his own, so the Chelik of Yisrael also becomes cancelled. But later on, I guess he got older and he looked at the ways of the world and he saw there were plenty of Yidden who were prepared to worship their own idols. Yisrael adaited nafshe polach. No, he's not worshiping the Goy, he's part of the idol, he's worshiping his own. So when the Goy cancels his own Avodah Zarah, the Yisrael lebatel. He cannot cancel the Yid's Avodah Zarah. That's how we understood, one way of understanding what he was saying. What Hillel, the son of Abalos, was explaining. But Ikad the Masnal Sefer. There are others that learn it on the Sefer of this very Mishnah. The first part of the Mishnah says that a Goy is mevatel his Avodah Zarah on the Goy. The second part is that a Yid cannot be mevatel the Avodah Zarah of a Goy. So some say that his comment was on that part of the Mishnah. He says Yisrael it's obvious. It's obvious. It can't be mevatel his own. How can mevatel somebody else's? Omer Abhil, Breid Avalis, Abhil said, the son of Avalis, Loi Nitzacha, we're talking about a case, Sheyesh Loi Ba Shutras, that the Yid has a Shutras with a Goy. Ukamash Malon, and the Chiddush is not that the Yid cannot cancel it. Obviously, he cannot cancel it. The Chiddush is, but the Goy could. Even though the Yid has a part of it, the Goy can cancel it. The Yisrael, who do the Yid cannot mevatel the Goy's share. The Goy can mevatel his own share. Everybody wants to know. All the Rishonim ask over here. We have a rule, Ein Breira. How can the Goy? Which half is the Goy's? What do you mean the Goy mevatel his share in the Avodah Zarah? What does it help? How do you know which part is the Goy's? What are you going to do? So the Ramban actually says it's talking about Avodah Zarah where it's clearly cut out. This is the foot of the Avodah Zarah. This is the hand, and the partnership was that the Goy owns the foot and the Yid owns the torso. So then it's very clear the Goy section. So the Goy can pull his foot off and do whatever he wants with it. That's how Ramban learns, and others want to learn that what it means is that the Rashba and others, they want to learn. It's talking about that the Goy is mevatel his share. We don't know what the share is, and he gives it now over to the Yid. So the Yid, part of his Avodah Zarah is mutter. So therefore, the Yid can sell now half of that to another Goy, because half of it is not Avodah Zarah anymore, because the Goy can cancel his part. Anyway, the third version, that in fact it has nothing to do with our Mishnah, it's a comment on a Braisa. Avodah says, Avodah Zarah can never be cancelled. My Olamis, what do you mean that it can never be cancelled? Talking about a case here is that there's a partnership with the Goy. Ukamashmalan, the Yisrael, and the Chiddush is that the Yisrael don't think he is worshipping the Goy's part of the Avodah Zarah. The Yisrael adaited the nafshe polach. He's worshipping his own part of the Avodah Zarah, and therefore it can never ever be cancelled. Okay, we're gonna have a shvur tov and a good vach.
What does it mean exactly? Have a shit